Welcome, everybody, to Edge of the Rabbit Hole. We have a fantastic show coming up for you tonight. James Keenan is in the house. Coming up next. Welcome back, everybody, to Edge of the Rabbit Hole. I'm author and researcher Mike Ricksecker. With me, as always, is my co-hostess, Victoria Monday. And down in the chat room, Alina, moderating the chat. We have a fantastic show coming up for you tonight. Author, lecturer, and field researcher James Keenan is with us. I'm really interested to talk to him. He's done a lot of research out there in the Uinta Basin. So we're talking like Skinwalker Ranch, Blind Frog Ranch. He has a very interesting and educated background, and he's written several books and James, this is what I want to talk to you about, how you've written these books, fictional books, but they dive into all of this interesting activity that's out there, and it's for a younger crowd to really introduce them to this phenomenon. So first of all, welcome to the show. I appreciate having you on.
Thanks for having me. How are y'all doing?
Great. Doing pretty well. So, tell us about this work that you've been doing. Like I said, these are fictional books, but you present all this fantastic information to the readers. So, I guess, how did you first get into this, and why did you take this angle on this research?
Sure. So, initially, when I'd written my original book, Dark Shadows and Catastrophe, I was still in private investigations. And if I'd come out and said the things I did and let people know it was real, I probably wouldn't have had a job the next day. So I figured I would disguise a lot of the real occurrences in that, especially since it dealt with shadow figures in my personal life. So I really enjoyed writing the fiction. Not only could I tell and explain to people what had occurred, and then in other books research into past history and all that, but I just enjoyed being able to create something. I always loved the paranormal, horror, science fiction, and I figured, well, why not just meld them all together? And after doing that for a while, after I had finished with and private investigations, I started doing some teaching on the side, and I realized that the younger audience, they knew absolutely nothing really about ufology. They were into a lot of the paranormal that's taking place, but they only seemed to watch one or two shows that present just the same details or use the same technology, and you never really are told what the technology really is. It's just kind of, oh, this is this reading I got, it's crazy, or this meter is spiking, and you never got the real science behind it. So I figured, you know what, why not introduce the children to the ufology, to the paranormal, but to not just that aspect that they were aware of, but really what people are trying to find, or what the end game is, in hopes of maybe one day that paranormal becoming actual scientific knowledge. So I said, you know what, the first one will be the UFO and an alien. The second one will be about shapeshifters. And then the third one, I wanted to bring directly everybody in that age group, about 10 to 14 years of age, to Skinwalker Ranch. Even though the shapeshifters took place there as well, I wanted them to be fully immersed into the location on the Uinta Basin. And I figured, why not cover cryptids at the same time? So over the course of the last 3 years, we did ufology and other cryptids, anthropomorphic creatures, and now I'm done. So I'm working on my first nonfiction book.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. A lot of our viewers are, very interested in, of course, the television show that's out there now about Skinwalker Ranch. So let me ask you, what do you think is really going on out there?
Yeah. So whatever is energetic, or whatever uh, causes or creates this paranormal activity, there's many different types of events occurring, and they seem to, for some reason, be feeding off of the location and what that energy is. And after, it's kind of interesting because for the first 5 or 6 years, I had been leaning in one direction. And in the last 6 months, we've found so much new information and details, and things have occurred that I've changed in what I believe is happening based upon the data points collected, what's been seen. And really, it seems to be that whatever is taking place is caused by whatever's underground. There's something very energetic. I believe it's magnetic, based upon data points being collected. And there's a unique substances, metals, minerals, I guess you could say. It's hydrocarbons. There's something specifically called gilsonite, which is only found in 3 places in the world. And the gilsonite on the Uinta Basin happens to be the best of this product. And its properties, when mixed with probably the piezoelectric abilities, because of all the quartz at the location on the Uinta Basin, it's very saline water in underground. You just have this coming together of so many. It's almost as if everything's just melding together there at the right time, the right place. And it hasn't just been for 100 years. When I initially started this off, I would consider myself an avocational archaeologist. That was what I was degreed in from the University of California at Santa Barbara. And I tracked Mesoamerican culture, and I tracked it all the way up to Utah and was big into the petroglyphs and the pictographs. And it was amazing to me what I was seeing, that these anthropomorphic creatures and these objects were just, they shouldn't belong from 2, 3, 4,000 years ago. It looked more like I was watching a science fiction movie or a paranormal movie from our current age. And I had heard of Skinwalker Ranch, and I was barely familiar with it 4, 5, 6 years ago. And I was surprised to find out that it was within several miles of many of these locations. And so I delved into that. And it's crazy to see what they're talking about now. Multiple past cultures saw, the Fremont saw it, the Barrier Canyon style people saw it. And then we have this really unknown culture. They're so unknown that anthropologists and archaeologists have them labeled as unknown culture. But they were putting in the same stuff that we're seeing and experiencing today. And it's just amazing, because what you find in Utah is very rare, even in regards to those ancient past cultures. And it's just incredible to have this continuation for what I believe is 4,500 plus years of paranormal events taking place.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. There's a lot to unpack in everything that you just said, from the ancient cultures to I want to go back before we get into those, because everything about the different cultures, the petroglyphs, all that to me is extremely fascinating. I love history, but I do want to touch on the energy for a moment. You mentioned the geology there, the water that's there, but I want to ask you about the Earth's energy grid, the telluric currents within the Earth, if that plays into it as well. And of course, people also want to know if there is a extraterrestrial component there as well. Is there something extraterrestrial buried in the ground, along with all of these things that's helping to feed this?
So I wouldn't go into saying extraterrestrial. What I would tell people is there's technology there that's ancient. I lean more towards an ancient past culture or civilization. Where they originated from, I couldn't tell you. Uh, it could even be interdimensional, or what I believe, there's many portal events there, and this energy is transient. It moves around and it creates portals in multiple locations. It's been documented as far back as the mid 1990s by NIDS, and then Bass, when Robert Bigelow owned the ranch, and Junior Hicks, who had been doing this for 55 years. And you have these events, and I'm almost positive I'm going to be going up there in a week. And I don't want to ruin, I'm pretty sure
you need to hold back a few things. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure that we're going to bring new information out in regards to what's underground. And we're doing that by trying to find our way underground.
Let me ask you this. Are you at least going to talk about that at the UFO Mega Conference?
Oh, you bet. Absolutely.
Right.
I'm going to present a lot of new information that really gets into the energy, where it may be coming from, the past historical data. And from what a lot of people read from Hunt for the Skinwalker, I'm going to tie in events that they've discussed in the book, and tell you what I'm pretty sure what it's from, or how the occurrence was capable of taking place. And I want to give this bigger location that it's not just Skinwalker Ranch or Blind Frog Ranch, but you're talking about a very energetic area in electromagnetic, in the EMF field, in the magnetic field. And I want to actually show you real collected data points using, real technology. I'll have a vector magnetometer, gradiometer, which uses 3D ground imaging, which allows me to look 54 feet into the ground and see what's there and capture it. And the GPR, I use ground penetrating radar, but it's very difficult for people to read and see the data unless you're familiar with how it forms. But with the 3D ground imaging, it's amazing what it's capable of showing people. And I'm hoping to actually be able, in the week that I'm up there, have even more additional information that I can throw in. I'll be back for 3 days at home, and I'm hoping I can fit it in somewhere into the presentation that I've already got set up and ready to go. But you know what? If there's a huge discovery, that may end up taking the whole 2 hours I have just to be able to, hey, look, this is what we found. And I'm going to be spending a lot of time on the ranch, Blind Frog Ranch, and in the Skinwalker Ranch area, and in Fort Duchesne. And I'm going to tie in, the Ute history into what's going on, and my take that has changed in the last 6 months. Like I was kind of telling you about the Skinwalkers, which are supposedly the Navajo, the Dene, or the Inalblushi, as they call themselves.
Right. So for everybody that's watching and listening, that presentation from James is going to be at the Laughlin UFO Mega Conference, June 6th through 12th. So you can get the information for that, ufomegaconference.com. So we're both going to be there, and that's going to be, I'm really looking forward to your presentation and all of that. So Victoria, I know you have some questions.
I'm looking forward to yours.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I do want to talk to you about shadow entity, since you've had that experience before, but sure. I'll let Victoria ask a few questions here first.
Well, I tried to catch up at work because I really don't know anything about the Skinwalker Ranch, and I was in so deep into a rabbit hole that just went everywhere. So I have a couple of questions that are kind of loose end questions that maybe you could tie up, and then I can throw in my question, really. Did the Hohokam and the Mogollon, did they morph over into the Aztec tribes?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure, and you'll get, depending on which anthropologist or archaeologist you talk to, they're going to tell you yes or no. And remember, as whoever was originating in the Uinta Basin in that area of Utah, they turned out Azteca. And they also turned out the Nahuas of Chihuacan, which is on the west coast of Mexico, which 20 years ago, the anthropologists and archaeologists told you that's BS. There is no ancient cultures over there. They were too far away from the Maya. Well, they're wrong. There's this huge pyramid there that is, topped off completely in clay that tells them, no, wrong. So yeah, as they moved southward, many of the Magillon, the Hohokam, the other tribes or groups went with them. Now, remember, some of them stuck around, and that's probably what formed the tribes that we see today, along with this migration in and out of Canada or further north down, like the Navajo and the Apache are from the north. They're not from the area that the Ute are. And what's interesting is you can trace that, because what the Ute speak, or the Paiute, is a Uto-Azteca language, which you can see through the Toltec, the Aztec, all these indigenous people, all the way down to Mexico City when it was Tenochtitlan.
Right. Because I used to live out by the superstitions, and I couldn't help but compare the two, like Skinwalker Ranch and the superstitions. They have so many similarities. The superstitions are volcanic, so there's the lava tubes, and the Utes had the mining tunnels. And I guess my real question is, did the Aztecs have stories of I've been calling them the ant aliens, the insectoids?
So the ant people are through all the cultures of the desert Southwest, even into Mexico. Specifically, though, with the Azteca, it's not prominent. I haven't investigated that or gone into that, because my research is more in regards to the older groups that were here, Olmec and pre-Olmec. But you have to think that that's an absolute yes. If the origination took place in Utah, and we see the Zuni Pueblo and these other groups that originated from the Hisatzanam or the ancestral Pueblo, because we don't use Anasazi anymore. It's very derogatory. But as they came, So,
I had somebody call me out on that on one of my videos before. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. People don't know that changed.
I didn't know it all. But all those years I lived there, I didn't know. So sorry. So my real question is, because I'm a fan
we're
of
educating,
Hollow Earth.
That's what it is.
I'm a fan of the Hollow Earth.
Because it was, if I'm remembering correctly, it was a derogatory term was it the Navajo to the
Navajo?
Hopi?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what the Navajo did was, when they were working with the archaeologists, the Navajo got together and said, "Hey, we'll tell them that they were the Anasazi," and the archaeologists and anthropologists didn't know better. They're European descent, and it's stuck. And the Navajo go back over, and they're laughing at them. And the Zuni Pueblo and those that descended from the descendants from them have pushed for this for quite a while, and it really hasn't caught on until about the last, I'd say, 15 years. And there was a time when we didn't know what to call them. Are they Hisatzanam? Are they ancestral Pueblo? And I think the best thing is just to use ancestral Pueblo, because it covers a broader grouping of those that were in the Four Corner region, all the way over into East New Mexico area of the current United States.
Well, that was one of my things, because you just said the Navajo kind of pulled a fast one. And from what I was reading, there was a time when the Utes actually enslaved the Navajo to do the mining. And then, whatever, they freed themselves, or the soldiers came, or whatever. And I know the Skinwalker is part of the Navajo history. Do you think perhaps the Navajo basically curse the Utes and say, okay, you're going to go over there, Skinwalker dude. And that's why he's over there. But I'm still drawing comparisons between the superstitions and Skinwalker Ranch, because what if the ant alien people came and brought them down because of a cataclysmic event? And there's radiation. That's what's making the Skinwalker Ridge light up. Or is it the radiation from the bombs in the 50s when they were testing, the 40s and the 50s?
So I don't think it was from the nuclear testing when they tested it in Nevada and all that wind was blowing eastward. There's something underground, and it's interesting because you're stealing a bit of my thunder from my lecture. I'm kidding.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I'll get into it slightly. So I'm a firm believer also that whatever is underground has been there for a very long time, and who those people discussed, I believe they were the originators. And, when you talk about Native American folklore and mythology, you're talking about being in the third or the fourth world, that they were destroyed by different ways, the last one by a great deluge. And in order to have survived that, they had to go underground, and they had to have lived there for a very long time, which, like you said, if there's lava tubes or a lot of limestone, gave them a lot of time to expand on what was naturally there. Mm-hmm. And that took place. You had all these mines, and you're right at the beginning of your question in regards to them enslaving. That has just been going. It's back and forth. The Paiute were enslaved at one point. Then the Navajo. Then the Spaniards came and enslaved the Ute to do the mining in those locations. And the Mexicans, when they took over, did the same thing. And they incorporated, they loved to sell their children to the Spaniards and the Mexicans, which caused warring between the Mormons and the Ute. But when I told you I had changed a bit in what my belief system was as to what was taking place, here's my take on it. Now, the Yinablushi, who are what we know as the Skinwalkers, are very self-serving. They only care about themselves. They hate the other Navajo. So why would the Navajo have asked a Skinwalker to curse the Utes? If they came across a Skinwalker, they would have probably killed it and not asked for it. And what would have been that self-serving gain? So who the Skinwalkers are is what I'm going to present in my presentation, again, based upon some historical data and some findings, and incorporating what I think has been taking place, especially with the United States government involved through OSAP and ATIP, specifically with Bob Bigelow on Skinwalker Ranch. And I'm going to kind of go into who I believe the Skinwalker or Skinwalkers are.
Okay, I have one more question. Okay, I'm lied. I really have more. The Utes were mining for gold, right? And the superstitions, you got Jacob Waltz, the Watts Dutchman, the gold mines and everything. When I lived out in Mesa, every couple of days, I would see those black helicopters flying over to the superstitions. Is there like some sort of UFO thingy going on over at the superstitions too, that we're just not talking about?
Yeah, there's a lot. As a matter of fact, lately I've got into, when I was a police officer, I was trained in using a Stalker KA radar gun and laser gun. And, today when you present videos to people that you took of UAP, they laugh. They're like, oh, that's fake. It's not real. And you're right. I don't even believe it, because anybody can go on the computer now and create whatever they want. So I'm using a KA gun now to fire about 34 gigahertz at orbs or UAP that we come across. And what I saw on the basin, I saw at the Superstition Mountains. And since I live down the street like you from the Superstitions, well, guess where I've been going every other day. And remember too,
Goldfield.
yeah, well, and two, for that one orb that I finally get to investigate, I've been out there 10, 11, 12, 13 times, and finally it happens. So it's not like I go out there and I summon them to me. I wish I could. But yeah, so you're exactly right. It's a very unique area, that you had Geronimo that somehow escaped the United States cavalry all the time and would show up in New Mexico. So how did he go from the Superstition Mountains to central New Mexico? Well, it was through underground cavern systems.
Yeah, because those are hard to hike. I mean, I never made it to the top, and people are still dying out there, seasoned hikers. And you said something about Marfa in one of your discussions. Are those the same orbs when you call the orbs in Marfa? The same orbs? Are they spaceships or crafts?
Nope.
Okay.
I believe the Marfa lights are anomalous events created by the faults that are out there. The way they act, just seems very random. It doesn't have any sentient ability to it, and I'm really only looking for one particular type of orb, and those are orange. And just due to the fact that the portals that I believe are being created have some orange energy involved in their creation, or at least when you see them, that's the color around it or somehow involved inside of it. And other than that, I don't go chasing orbs. I really just want one specific type.
I've actually seen that because when I was out at Marfa, they were going along and they were white and blue, and they connect and they go up and they turn orange and blue and yellow and gold. And I mean, it's not headlights if they're going up and doing this, they merge. And
right.
I don't know. Mike, you need to go.
I'll definitely get out there one of these days for sure. So, well, we're about halfway through the show, if you can believe that. I do want to get to some of these questions from our viewers. We're running live here on the Edge of the Rabbit Hole YouTube channel. I want to also thank those who listen in later on Spotify and iHeartRadio and other podcasting platforms, as well as KGRA Radio, where we are syndicated on at midnight on Fridays. So first question here from one of our viewers, Robert Hanna. Does James believe any secret military activity at Skinwalker Ranch and area?
So currently, no. In the past, yes. What that was, I mean, obviously I'm not privy to. I think if I had to venture at a guess, I would think of some type of cloaking ability. They were testing something that could cloak, and I think that technology was available underground, and that's what they were specifically looking for. But yeah, during I mean, obviously, OSAP ATIP was the funding was $23 million from the United States government to Bigelow to Skinwalker Ranch. So yes, in the past, no, currently. Okay.
And I just scrolled past it. Where'd it go? Find this question now. It's from Darren Boss off of Facebook. So, here it is. From Darren, question: do you think aliens are walking alongside of us on the sidewalks in malls?
So again, I have a lot of trouble with saying something is extraterrestrial when there's a better possibility of it having been from an ancient past culture or civilization that maybe has survived in portions or in some way, shape, or form. Or I would go more with the possibility of dimensional, interdimensional type of travel or abilities that are just easier. It's already here, it's available. And it just seems that it presents itself a greater possibility for that to be what's taking place. Now, could have been extraterrestrials that have lived here for a long time. Sure. Where they originated from, I obviously I couldn't tell you that.
Okay. Oh, totally fair enough. And then from Candy Orton, do you know Bren Fugel, the owner of Skinwalker Ranch, and have you actually been on the property?
Yes. Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. There you go, Candy. All right. Yeah, totally fascinating topic, and we will swing back around to Skinwalkers in the Uinta Basin. But I do want to ask you, James, because I have a personal interest, and I know you've had interaction with with shadow entities. So, what's been your experience?
I always get slightly uncomfortable talking about it, but so right before I was 2 years of age, I drowned, and I wasn't even located for about 7 to 10 minutes, and it took a while for me to be resuscitated. And I believe that, I guess, what took place in the course of my drowning, maybe it played into having this openness to other entities or other locations. And when I was about 4 years old, I started having a shadow figure just wreak a lot of havoc in my life. When I was living in La Habra, California, I didn't have anything happen until we moved into this brand new house that was on a hillside in La Habra. And then it was just nonstop until we finally moved from that location. Once we moved from that location, it happened one other time when I was about 8 years old, and we lived in Paradise Valley, California. And then one final event with this specific shadow figure when I was about 14 or 15 years old in El Paso, Texas, and then never again. But it was physical. And it's interesting. And my take on shadow figures is mine had what seemed to be like a hunter's cap. And it always formed in the same location. And it always seemed to be like this darker area formed before it came out of it. So I have this feeling that the hats that we see are their ability or their technology in order to come across from wherever they're from. Because it always seems that when you discuss shadow figures, there seems to be so many hats involved, whether it's a tall hat or a hunter's cap. And it's rare that there's these physical interactions, but mine at one point even interacted with my mother and father in a malevolent way, a physical way. So all the times I was horrified to go to bed and told them, there's this thing coming out, and whatever it was doing, and didn't get believed. Finally, they did believe, and we moved soon after. So I'm hoping that was part of the reason why we finally moved.
Can I ask you a question real quick? Did your
hang on just a second, Victoria, because I do want to present. We do have a $5 super chat from Jennifer Bloomer. So thank you very much, Jennifer. Absolutely appreciate that. So she is a super chat superstar this evening. Thank you, Jennifer. So go ahead, Victoria.
Did your little sister see the shadow person?
She was too little. When we lived at that house, she had just been born, and I don't believe she was more than a year old when we moved.
Okay.
From that location. But just real quick. Just real quick. The reason why I wrote the fictional novel Dark Shadows and Catastrophe was, again, I had in 1997 had started writing it as a non-fictional novel or book, and I had called it The Evil Pan, because that's what this reminded me of, was a Peter Pan just to the very malevolent degree. And, then I was in law enforcement, and then in private investigation for large corporations, where if I had continued to do that, I would have no longer, had that job. So it was just kind of my way around it. And it was very difficult for me to talk about, especially years ago, because, it's still very taboo for a lot of people. And they look at you like, you're full of it. It's all BS. And people tell you, they tell me this, oh, he's a cop, he's good at making up stories and all that. That's not true. Yeah, a lot of people have seen it. The great thing was it finally interacted with two adults, and for me, that just helped, that I wasn't making up. Well, I knew I wasn't making up, because I'd be bruised or have a cut or something, which there was no way I could do that. But I just wanted to throw that. That was the reason why. And as I move forward, and I'm going to stick to nonfiction from now, I'm going to delve deeper into my experience, because I really feel it tied into my near-death experience and what those abilities or capabilities were. And remember too, if you read Dark Shadows and Catastrophe, I'd say about 40 or 50% of it is real, but I did incorporate it into fiction. So not everything occurred. If you meet me in person or you buy a book and I'm there, a lot of times I'll have a book where I've post-it noted, what really happened and what didn't. And as we move forward in the nonfiction sense, I'm just going to put it all out there. What really occurred and how it occurred and what I think it was and what for.
Let me ask you this. This experience that you had, are you okay, Victoria?
I have one more question.
Okay.
That's fine.
Well, you can always come back to it. With this experiences that you've had with this shadow entity, and it sounds like it was primarily at one location, but did seem to follow you because you had a couple more experiences. Do you find correlation, similarities between what you experienced there and some of this additional research that you've done with skinwalkers and other entities?
So again, remember I told you I'm really interested in these orange orbs, and everything comes down to, does the location have to have this energetic capability? Something that allows for this energy to build upon and then create some type of interdimensional portal. And I think that there's multiple types of portals, especially on the Uinta Basin. I think that we're capable, and we have seen, even in the petroglyphs, different entities there that you can see in all the anthropomorphic creatures that are in the petroglyphs. And I always tell people too, where you can substantiate that more from is the fact that what we see in our daily life, what the Barrier Canyon style people should have seen in their daily life, they didn't draw this or peck it. They were very focused on these atypical anthropomorphic looking creatures. And you got to ask yourself, was it that prevalent at the time they were here? Was the energy to a larger degree available for this to be happening? Was there some type of cataclysmic event, a plasma event that energized this specific area, which would go with maybe the possibility of how the gilsonite formed as well from hydrocarbons? So there's a lot that plays into that. And again, I think it comes to these shadow figures have some type of capability or ability to cross over, and it has to be technology even with them. And that's why I often wonder, what the hell are they doing wearing hats? Unless that hat is some type of tech that we're unaware of.
Go ahead, Victoria.
Okay. This is about your NDE. You don't have to go into it, anything. I know it's personal. But you were talking about, how how everything existed all at the same time, the past, the present, the future, and you didn't have to speak and you didn't have to hear, but it was all there. Would that be the same as like being the pinpoint inside a kaleidoscope and then everything just kind of going around? Or is that totally off base?
You know what? No, because this is when I listen to all these other NDE experiences where they see their family or they see these lights or they're in heaven. That's absolutely not what I experienced. And I have this amazing memory recall from the moment I was drowning. And to the degree where it's almost as an adult's memory. I remember absolutely everything from before the age of 2, from that point on. And I have a lot of difficulty explaining what it was because it's not the same senses that we use or are aware of now. So I almost have this, when somebody tells about an NDE and it somewhat matches what I experienced, I know they actually had it because there was no need to see anything because you're not using your visual cortex or eyeballs to see it. You're in a different form of energy. You're connected with absolutely everything and it's immediate. So what I always tell people is when you have these people in a seance and they summon and it's almost immediate, I get it, because if everything is connected, that's exactly what I experienced. Everything was immediate. It was a connection. We were all part of this collective. You didn't touch, you did feel, but it was in a different way. You didn't, it wasn't evil. It wasn't good. It was just absolutely everything all at once. And it was fantastic. It wasn't a negative experience at all. Well, I mean, other than the drowning part, which was horrific. And I remember, that wasn't good, but the after part was just an amazing experience. And I didn't care if I came back or not, but you know what? I'm glad to have had almost another 50 years. So I'm not, I'm grateful.
We're glad you came back too.
Thank you.
So I have a couple other questions here from our viewers. Get to a couple more of these. From Emily Minshouse. Are skinwalkers in the same class as reptilians?
No, I don't believe so. And again, when I give my presentation, I think the skinwalkers that are on the Uinta Basin is something completely different. Now, if we're talking about the Dene and the Yinald Lushi and their ability to shapeshift, that is something that goes into Atishgash, which is dark magic practiced by the Dene. And it's completely different than the reptilians. That would be, and I'm not familiar with reptilians. I see that a lot as an additional species. Could it have been a past culture or civilization? Absolutely. When we see the dinosaurs, it could have easily been a crossing over point between that species and those that we see today. But yeah, completely separate in my opinion.
Okay. From Betty Lange, Betty's Grand Old Folks, how are the children's books received? Do you get questions from them?
Yeah, so remember too, it's fictional. So I like to put in morals. I teach about the difference between equality and equity in the first book, The UFO and an Alien. I incorporate other aspects of life, the growing pains of being a teenager. And I include information in ufology because when you go to these UFO conventions and you look around, the average age is getting up there. I'd probably say it's in the 60s. Yeah, and there's very few children. And so I talked to the kids that I was teaching at the time, and they provide amazing information and a wealth of knowledge as to what they believe, and it was just totally off. So instead of just being able to discuss it with the few, I tried to incorporate what our discussions were in the classroom into those books. And I'm hoping that it presents, not just a new dimension or category for them to go and research, but to also see that there's more to it than just those couple shows they watch on television that, I hate to say it, but it's not all to it. It's not all encompassing. And
Right.
they skip the important details sometimes.
No, I definitely agree with that. I have a question for you, actually, for Victoria, because I'm surprised she did not ask this earlier.
Yet.
Well, when you're talking about some of the different insectoids and living underground, so are these creatures or entities that could possibly be living into what a lot of people refer to as Hollow Earth?
Yes.
I
Victoria
think you
loves
might be
Hollow
onto
Earth.
something.
I was trying to allude to that.
So, yes. So you have to look at what's going on below ground. In the presentation, I've taken a lot of time, and I'm going into great detail as to what that encompasses on the Uinta Basin. That if you think about it, if this was a location where the ancestors survived a major catastrophic event, that would be treated as a shrine, or to the indigenous people that follow, that's a memorial, and they don't want people to know about it. They don't want people to touch it. But if those ancestors lived there for so long, and there may have been precious metals or other minerals there, they had to get rid of they had to carve that out. The Utes didn't care for the yellow gold that the Spaniards killed them for. They made a few trinkets out of it, but they were more interested in shells, in turquoise, what was sparkly. And so all that got deposited elsewhere as this was being carved out to survive in. And I'm going to ruin my own presentation, but yeah, so it could definitely, when we have these stories in our mythology and folklore, it fits in with Middle Earth. I mean, if people had to live underground for hundreds of years until they could resurface, you bet. I mean, what else could you call it at that point?
Yeah.
Yeah. And for those that are tuning in a little bit on the later side, the presentation that James keeps referring to is at the Laughlin UFO Mega Conference. That is June 6th through 12th. So coming up here pretty soon. James, what day is your presentation?
I am Wednesday, June the 9th, I believe at 1:15, right after lunch.
Okay.
And what's great too is right after me is going to be the owner of Blind Frog Ranch, who's a good friend of mine. So he's going to present the ufology that goes behind it.
Yeah, I was looking at the lineup, and it seems like Wednesday is really like the Uinta Basin day.
Right.
Yeah. So, Victoria, what else you have? I know you have a bunch of other questions over there.
That was pretty much it. Hollow Earth. What's the difference between a Wendigo and a Skinwalker? Other than the Wendigo was on Supernatural with Sam and Dean. I don't know about Skinwalkers.
I think they're one and the same. It's just how the folklore and the mythology came about. And remember too that what we consider folklore and mythology to the Native Americans is historical data. So I apologize for even saying that. Their historical data is just different. But even when you're discussing the giants, they just have a different name for them, but they all are represented the same way. They're these tall white race that were here. They were regal, they considered them kings and queens, and their technology and abilities were tenfold over the other indigenous people. So same with the shapeshifters. You have a little different offshoot, maybe based upon geographic location that could play into that. Remember that the Skinwalker, the Uinta is mostly for this desert southwest region of the United States. And for some of the groups like the Navajo, it's incorporated far more into their history than additional groups around them, even if they come from the same place like the Apache.
Mm-hmm. Now, you
So,
said
hang on a second, Victoria, because I want to follow up on that, because to kind of for my understanding, because this is the way I've kind of related the two, because Wendigo seem to be a lot more. I mean, they're cannibalistic. So to kind of simplify it, I guess in my own head, I kind of put skinwalkers as shapeshifter in the realm of like werewolves, and Wendigo being cannibalistic in the realm of like zombies. I mean, again, kind of really simplifying it, but what do you think, James?
Remember that the skinwalkers practice Adishgash, which is dark magic, and in order to become a skinwalker, they have to do some pretty terrible things.
Well, they have to murder a loved one and things like that. Yeah,
right. Kill a loved one or sleep with a sibling. It gets, you go deeper into it. You start getting into certain things. When you're discussing things of that topic, depending on which indigenous people, which Native American tribe you're talking to, even in regards to their giants, many were cannibals, some weren't, and you've got to look and find out why. Where was that difference, or where did they break off and go on to different routes? So I think origin, or whatever is origin, is probably the same. And at some point, again, I think geography still helps shape that a lot. And it just depends on what tribe you're looking at, to the point where, how great does that mythology go in regards to cannibalism or shape-shifting, or the two combining, one being, more of taking on living creatures, the other being almost the Walking Dead.
Okay. Go ahead, Victoria.
Are the skinwalkers only found in Utah, or are they found everywhere?
No. So they're mostly in the desert Southwest. So you're going to find them a lot more where the Navajo Nation is, in the Four Corners regions. Okay. You will find that they don't like to discuss it, because if they discuss it, that means, bad things are going to happen to them. Mm-hmm. They're almost inviting it, or, the Lucy are going to come after them because they don't want them to be known that they're there or what they do. Sympathetic magic is basically, right. Along with the dark magic, you're talking about sympathetic magic as well with Adishgash.
Ooh, okay. That was pretty much all my questions there. Right. But this is so fascinating. I mean, just the comparison, I was just going, oh, look, and this was in Arizona too, because I lived out by AJ, and yeah, it's just so interesting how it ties into I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the basin, the something basin.
The Uinta Basin.
That place, yes. It's just, I just find it so interesting because, I mean, even the gold, the mineral, the tubes, the mythology, I know the superstitions, people had superstitions about you'd lose your head. And I thought a lot of that was the Apaches were actually mutilating people and to scare them off so they wouldn't actually go up in the superstitions. That's just
I think it's a little bit of a little bit of both.
Yeah. So it's just fascinating.
All right. Last question here from our viewers. I'll bring it back to Candy Orton again. What and who are under Mount Shasta? Inquiring minds need to know.
Ooh.
Candy, I have no idea.
honest answer. There you go. No idea. Well, we only have a few minutes left here, James. It's been absolutely fascinating getting a chance to talk to you. And I can't wait to talk to you out at the Laughlin UFO Mega Conference. But I've only been showing these 3 books, but you have 7 actually. So you want to talk a little bit about the books that you do have available and where people can find them?
Sure. You can go to amazon.com/author/James Keenan, and all the books are there for you to look at. One is I no longer have available, but 6 of them are available. The first one is Dark Shadows and Catastrophe. The next one is the continuation of that, which is 10/22/2036. And then I have Shoplifting in a Paranormal Zone, which is based a lot on what took place when I worked at a specific location in retail loss prevention. This was a very old building, and there were some very interesting things that took place. Not just to me, I incorporated what happened to other people into the main character as well. So again, like I said, I at the time I couldn't just come out and write it as it,
Right.
Plus I didn't want other people to, their names be used unless they wanted it that way. So it was just easier to incorporate into a fictional character.
Yep. Totally understandable. And again, you'll be speaking at the Laughlin UFO Mega Conference, and you said it was Wednesday the 9th. So I just want to make sure we get that straight. So everybody come out and watch James. It's going to be an absolutely fascinating reveal of all of his research. So I know I'm definitely looking forward to it. So, all right. So thank you very much, James, for coming out and speaking with us tonight. Again, truly fascinating topic, and I think we're just hitting the tip of the iceberg here with all of this.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely. There's so much going on. It's very rare in this world to be able to see so much phenomena take place in such a small, tiny location. Especially on Skinwalker Ranch, it's only 512 acres. And what goes on there and on the surrounding ranches is and don't get me wrong, a lot of people have lived there and they haven't experienced it, or maybe they just didn't realize what was going on. But when you focus in on it, it's just an amazing opportunity to be able to partake of that. And not just Skinwalker Ranch, but Blind Frog Ranch is extremely unique, especially what's underground there.
Ooh. That was a tease.
Well, they have a show for that one too, Victoria.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but it'd be interesting to see all of your research on that. So, again, thank you, James, very much for coming out this evening, and I'll see you in a few weeks.
Yep, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It was nice to
Have
meet
a great
you.
night. Bye-bye.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
All right, everybody. That was James Keenan. Absolutely interesting man and fascinating discussion. I am seriously really looking forward to his presentation at the Laughlin UFO Mega Conference. So let's go ahead and get to all of the shout outs and thank everybody. And Alina, thank you very much for moderating the chat down there and feeding me all the questions. Absolutely appreciate that. We do have a Super Chat superstar this evening. That is Jennifer Bloomer. Thank you very much, Jennifer, for being our Super Chat superstar this evening. All right. So let's get to the participants tab here. We want to thank Andrew and his Trucking Gnomes. That's Andrew Cox. Thanks for joining us tonight. Betty Lange, thanks for joining us as well. Bravo Alpha Golf, thanks for joining us tonight. There's Candy Orton. Thanks for the questions, Candy. Emily Minshouse, thanks for joining us tonight. Helen Espinoza, thank you as always. Jennifer Bloomer, of course, our Super Chat superstar for this evening. Jill Nimchinsky, thank you as always. There's Joy. Thanks for joining us tonight. Lynn Bowling, thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate that. Melanie V, thanks for joining us tonight. Pungai Fungi.
Yes, fun guy. We've missed you.
Always love saying that name.
It's a fun
Robert
name.
Hanna, thanks for joining us, as well as Stacy Comiskey. Thank you as always. Stanton's Journey, that's Christopher Stanton. Thanks for joining us tonight, as always. And Who's Duncan? Thank you very much. Adam Tillery, pop it in there. And Des Hernandez, thank you as well.
You know, Adam
So
could buy
that's-
those kids' books for little Adam.
Well, yeah, they're more like
Young adult.
teens. Yeah, young adult teenager. Yeah, so
you can start
a
reading 'em
few
now.
years. Arthur's got a few years yet. he's still kind of little.
Start them now.
Yep. Let's go through and see who the participants tab missed. So we've got Haunted Road Media's Fairy Queen, Diane Hilbert. Thank you. There's Tammy Heitzman. Thank you as always. Banana Bowie. Thanks for joining us tonight. That's another fun name, Banana Bowie.
It is. You know?
It is. Let's see who else we have in here. I know there are others on the Facebook side, like Penny Hurst. I know Darren Buss was in there on Facebook. So thank you on the Facebook side. Our primary broadcast is out here on YouTube, so I try to pay attention to the Facebook. Greg Koss out there just popped in there on Facebook as well.
Sarah Morgan was in there.
Sarah Morgan was in there. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. All right. I'm scrolling through the last. Guess that's probably going to be about. Oh, well, there was Chuck Banks, Coaching Culture and Athletics. Great to see you out there, Chuck. Been a little while, my friend. All right. Okay. So I guess that's going. Oh, Nisapu was in the house. Fantastic. All right, everybody.
Full
Guess
house.
that is. What's that?
It was a full house.
It was a full house. We had a lot of people in tonight, which was great. It's a topic that people are very, very
yeah.
interested in. So, do want to make an announcement about Beyond the Shadows for tomorrow night. Because I have a 9 p.m. interview that was scheduled before I moved Beyond the Shadows to Wednesday nights. I'm having to start up Beyond the Shadows half an hour early tomorrow, so 7:30 p.m. tomorrow. For those that are members of the Connected Universe, you can, of course, you have the access there to join us out on the Beyond the Shadows live stream secret group to watch that live, ask all the questions and all that fantastic stuff. So 7:30 though instead of 8 tomorrow. Then we'll be back to regular time next week. So, all right.
Eastern.
So Eastern, yes, I do have to specify Eastern. People don't know. So, all right, everybody. That's it for tonight. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your evening. And be sure to check out James's books. And also, if you can come out to the Laughlin UFO Mega Conference, June 6th through 12th, watch him speak on Wednesday the 9th. I'm up on the 7th, by the way. First thing in the morning, 9 a.m. Yeah. It's like people realize I have to have my coffee first, and yeah.
The best way to get through that is just to stay up all night.
No, I'm not going to do that.
No, that's the best way. Yeah. Okay. It's the
I
only
have
way
to
I
be
can get up.
coherent for this thing.
Oh, no, but you can be. All of us
Right.
paranormal people are night owls. We are.
Yeah, but it's a little different when you actually have to present in the morning. I mean, I could still get up and and be somewhat coherent, but not at the top of my game.
You would ace it. You would do great.
All right, and there's Christopher Stanton's Journey. See Mike this weekend at OSR House there for That's Parapsychon, so that's actually coming up before the Laughlin UFO Mega Conference. It's the Parapsychon there at Ohio State Reformatory. So that's Saturday and Sunday, and there's some stuff going on Friday night too. So
I'll be at
like
work.
Celebrity Ghost on set Friday night. So.
You have all the fun. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be at work.
All right. Well, everybody, have a great night. See you next time.
Night.